Maire McCann, also known as Maire, is an Irish nurse who embarked on a meaningful journey in Vietnam, establishing a center for children with hearing impairment.
Trước đây mình còn nhỏ, mình bị khiếm thính, không biết cách nói chuyện với ba mẹ. Sau đó gặp cô Mai đã trao cho mình cơ hội. Bây giờ mình cảm thấy vui và hạnh phúc rất nhiều.
It became a place that changed lives. Trước đây Ngọc cảm thấy ở nhà rất buồn vì không có bạn, không giao tiếp được với ai. Khi mà đến đây học, em rất vui vì có bạn.
Sau này em muốn làm thợ hàn vì được học ở lớp kỹ năng nghề.
The center is a place that spreads love and is filled with warm smiles.
For 20 years, one Irish-born woman has dedicated to the cause of bettering the lives of hearing-impaired children here in Hội An, central Vietnam. Her efforts have allowed her to erect a specialized schools that help these children rise to their potential and help their lives change completely. And before she knows it, the school and the children has become her meaning of her life. And now it is our honor and pleasure to introduce to you Miss Maire McCann. Thank you so much for appearing on our show, Talk Vietnam today.
Thank you, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have to talk about running a school. It is not an easy job.
No.
So how did you do it?
With a lot of luck, I think. I stumbled into this. It was never my plan. But I must say today, I have such brilliant staff. In the beginning, the staff were not so capable. But now our staff, they're just wonderful. So they make my job very easy.
Well, you know, that is what we have now, and we have already seen the efforts and the fruitful results of, you know, your organization and the school itself. But I want us to take back a little bit when it first began. So Vietnam, why did you choose to come here? What was the catalyst?
I didn't choose Vietnam. So in 2005, I went through a very difficult relationship breakup, which left me, to be honest, feeling suicidal. I was so depressed. And I knew that the only way to help me was to help someone else. So I knew I had to get out of Australia, which is where I was working at the time, but I didn't care where I went. Could be Vietnam, could be Africa, could be China, I didn't care. I just needed to help someone. But for about a year, while I was saving money to do this, every person I spoke to, every magazine I looked at, every TV program said, Vietnam, Vietnam, it was just all around me.
Right.
So I thought, oh, well, I'll go to Vietnam, that's fine. And from the minute I landed in Da Nang, but as soon as I got to Hội An, I was home.
Wow. So how does your cause to bettering the lives of hearing impaired children came from? Obviously, you know, when you landed in Vietnam, was it the first thing that you decided that you would do?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So I only came to Vietnam for 3 months, and I came to volunteer as a nurse with another charity. And my plan was then I would go back to my homeland in Ireland. So 3 months I was staying and then I was going. But I didn't factor in that I would fall in love with Hội An and I would be so comfortable here. And while I was volunteering as a nurse, I spent a day with an Australian speech pathologist. And I realised there were so many deaf children in Hội An and none of the charities were helping them. So I thought, well, I can help 1 or 2 children.
Right.
So that's what I did. I helped 1 or 2 children.
And I feel like, you know, there was no blueprints for any of this.
No, I stumbled. I'm not a teacher.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the deaf community. I'm a nurse.
Right.
I knew nothing about running a charity or helping deaf children, but we stumbled our way along and we must have done something right. So I had 2 children learning part-time 2 or 3 evenings a week for a couple of hours. And so just through talking with Vietnamese friends, I found someone to teach them, and unfortunately that only lasted 6 months, and then she got married and moved away. So I had to send the children to a boarding school in Da Nang, which I didn't want to do, but I couldn't find a teacher. So that was always a short-term option. My plan was always bring them home, have them taught in Hoi An. So I wanted not to build it, to open a school. I wanted to do that almost immediately because I kept hearing about more deaf children and the fact that there was no education for them at all. How can a child not be educated? They're deaf, they're not stupid. So just gradually over months, more and more children, and it took me, I would say, over a year to find a teacher. And as soon as I found a teacher, we moved the children back to Hoi An. And at that time it was in a house I rented. I had a bedroom downstairs, the classroom was upstairs, and that's where we started.
Wow. Having a place is one thing, having a teacher is one thing, having the fund to run that, I believe it's going to be.
Well, in the beginning it was easy because I was obviously single, I had no responsibilities, I worked as a nurse, so the money I earned in Australia goes much further in Vietnam. So I would go back to Australia and work for 3 or 4 months, just save my salary, not spend anything, come back and keep the school going for a further 4 months, 5 months. When we start to run out of money, I go back to work. So in the beginning it was easy because we only had about 4 children. The longer I spent with the children, the more I resented having to go back to Australia. I didn't want to, but I had to. But then as we took on more students, obviously it needed more funds than I could provide. If I went back to work in Australia full time, I could have continued funding it on my own. But I didn't want to be in Australia, I wanted to be here. So that's when I had to start reaching out to family, friends, to help a little.
This is a Vietnamese language class, but without the usual noise. Nonetheless, these young students are no less excited when they write or answer questions using sign language. It is one of many practical classes at Hearing and Beyond in Vietnam. Children 7 to 18 are assessed for admission. The center also provides students in difficult circumstances with partial to full financial support for tuition fees. The teachers at the center are very dedicated, always sharing, patient and loving towards the children.
Học xong rồi chơi, ngủ thì tôi cảm thấy là giúp đỡ được các em, giúp các em học. Hàng ngày các em tiến bộ hơn qua mỗi ngày thì tôi cảm thấy là vui và nghĩ là có thể là gắn bó với các em. Mình mong muốn là hy vọng là các bạn khi mà lớn lên, các bạn có thể tìm được một công việc phù hợp với mình, có thể là tự nuôi sống bản thân.
When Maire McCann established the center in 2008, it only had 2 students. However, the school roll grew to accommodate 27 students. Currently, the center is at full capacity, with many children on the waiting list. What Mai and her associates care about the most is fostering the children's love for learning and exploring the world around them through subjects such as Vietnamese, mathematics, sign language, ethics, natural and social sciences, and skills like pronunciation and computer science. All aim to equip young students with the necessary assets to transition into adulthood.
Em thích học ở đây vì có nhiều bạn bè, còn được đọc sách nữa. Lớn lên em muốn trở thành một người bán hàng ở siêu thị.
Em thích làm bác sĩ vì cứu giúp và khám bệnh cho nhiều người.
So, what are some of the mission of Hearing and Beyond?
So our mission is to provide a high quality education to deaf and hard of hearing children. We could invite 100 children and give them a little bit of help, but it's better to help a small number of children and give them, change their lives, change their whole lives. So in the beginning, a lot of the parents thought we were like a babysitting service. We'll look after your disabled child while you go to work. We're here to educate the children.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said before, the children are deaf. They are not.
They're not stupid.
Yeah.
They're very intelligent children.
And so, what are some of the forms of help that you could provide them to help them rise to the potential, rise above the status quo?
When they're at school, they learn the same curriculum, but they're behind the curriculum. They learn reading, writing, maths, Vietnamese, sign language. Some of them are learning speech. As they get older, we're also teaching them life skills and vocational training, because we don't just want to teach them how to read and write. We have to enable them to be able to get a good job. I don't want these children, I don't want their career to be sitting behind a sewing machine all day, sewing. They are capable of so much more. So why can't they be teachers, nurses, doctors, businessmen?
Right.
That's what I want for them.
Yeah. Obviously, with all that dedication, I'm sure that we have heard a lot of successful stories coming from Hearing and Beyond and your school as well. So could you tell us like an anecdote of like one of your favorite success stories, your favorite child?
My first child, his name is Son, that's his face name.
Oh.
When Son started with me, I had different staff, different teachers, and they all said the same thing to me. There is a problem with that boy's brain, send him away, he cannot learn. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to them. Thank goodness. That boy is a brilliant mathematician.
Wow.
So I kept him at school, and he was my first student and my first student to leave school. And he was employed by a friend of mine at a cocktail bar in An Bang.
Wow.
And my friend Brad said, I will employ him on a 3-month contract. If we like him and he likes us, we'll take him on permanently. I said, okay. And 3 days later, my friend Brad rang me and said, we need to have a meeting about Son. And I said, okay, and
Might be ominous.
I was worried that he was going to say, this isn't working. I'm sorry, but... So I went along, ready to fight for Son and ready to say, no, you must give him more time.
Yeah.
I got there and Brad said, do you remember the 3-month contract we talked about? I said, yes, no. He said, forget it.
Yeah.
No contract. That boy is now working for me permanently. He said he is the best employee he has. He has very high work ethics. He says he only needs to tell him to do something once, and he does it. Wow. He can think ahead. He can look and see a problem, and before he's asked to fix the problem, it's already fixed.
Wow.
So
it's such a proud mom moment for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when he went to work, it was like my baby's leaving home. He's going out into the big wide world. But I'm so proud of him. He's doing very well.
Yeah. And where's Son now? Is he currently still working there?
He's still working there in An Bang and lives at home with his mum and his auntie and his sister. And his salary helps the family so much.
You know, having this much connection with all of these children, and you know, how does it feel to be part of something so integral to a child's development life, to you personally?
For me, I think on the day I die, if I can say I have changed one child's life for the better, my life has been a success. But now I get to think that multiple times, so I'm very blessed.
I can tell that, you feel blessed every single day knowing
absolutely,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is so much joy to receive by giving. I sometimes wonder if I get more out of the relationship than the children do.
Mai has created a suitable vocational training classes for young deaf and hard of hearing students to provide them with better opportunities to integrate into society. For example, female students learn how to sew, while male students aged 14 and older can take vocational classes in motorcycle repair, electric repair, or welding.
Trong lúc thì các bạn thì gặp rất là nhiều khó khăn, tại vì mình thì không biết ngôn ngữ khiếm thính nhiều, cho nên mọi thứ là diễn đạt bằng hành động hết. Dần dần rồi mấy bạn hiểu, rồi cũng được khoảng 50% là thấy là ổn rồi. Nếu mà không lặp lại là liên tục là bạn quen liền. Đôi lúc cũng nản, nhưng mà sau là cũng nghĩ lại cố gắng giúp cho trẻ thôi. Tại vì cô Mai cô rất là nhiệt huyết về vấn đề này. Cô muốn là trẻ sau này nó biết được nhiều thứ hơn, giúp cho các bạn thì nghĩ là các bạn sau này sẽ có được tương lai tốt hơn.
Em đã học Hàn, học mộc, sửa xe máy được 2 năm rồi. Em thích nhất là học Hàn và sau này trở thành thợ Hàn. Chú Đức dạy dễ hiểu, Danh muốn cảm ơn chú Đức. Học ở đây rất vui và hiểu được nhiều ạ.
We have just talked about a lot of the successes of Hearing and Beyond in your school, but I want to talk about the hard part of it, because obviously it's a long journey and you have to overcome so many things to be able to get where it is today.
Yes.
Right? And so what was the hardest part about running all of this operation?
Oh, it was very difficult. There were times when we came this close to closing because of financial reasons.
Was it mostly financial hardships?
That's been the biggest burden of my life, is the finances, yeah. And once I even had to put on Facebook, can someone please lend me $1,000?
Right.
If no one could lend me that, we would have to close. And I'm very lucky, my friend Jenny, it's in your bank.
Wow.
So.
It wasn't like a donation?
No, I didn't want a donation, I wanted to borrow, and I had it paid back in 3 months. I knew I could pay it back in 3 months. We had to move schools, had to move houses, and I needed money for 6 months' rent.
Right.
And I just didn't have it. We were living day to day.
Wow. But it ended up working out.
Oh,
to your
absolutely.
favor.
We're still open. But so many times, it's become so difficult with finding enough money, finding the right staff. Because I was doing it on my own, it was like a huge burden. But every time we got that close to closing, something happened.
Wow.
Always at the last minute, something happened or someone came into my life or somehow, no, I can keep going for a bit longer,
But has there been at any moment where you feel like that is too much and I just want to just drop everything?
There have been times like that, but if I drop everything, who picks up?
Yep.
What happens to these children if I suddenly say, I'm done, I'm tired, I've had enough, I'm finished? There's no one is going to step in and do it. But I'm very lucky now because my manager, Leon, who's also my very dear friend, if I drop dead tomorrow, she will take it over, 100%.
That is so lucky now that you have your companions with you now.
Yes.
Yeah, it has been a great help, I believe.
And because Leon and probably all of the staff really, they work from their heart. they don't work from their wallet.
Yes.
So they're very underpaid, but they work from the heart. And I would trust Lian with my life. I have no qualms. She knows the decisions to make. She knows the mission of the school.
What are the bigger picture, when it comes to children who are hearing impaired here? What were their common problems?
They have no means of communication. So as a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, how do you tell your parents, I have a pain, I feel sick, I feel hungry, I feel anything? They have literally no communication. If you have no communication, no education, obviously. No education, what is your future going to be?
Right.
Very, very difficult. But apart from that, I think the biggest problem is loneliness. Because all our students come from different areas, so they're not all in the one area. So when they go home, there is no one to communicate with.
That is right.
When they come to school, they talk so much. Because now they have a network of friends which they've never had.
The school is there to help fill in that gap, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I think like the early prevention that we just mentioned earlier, maybe it's like at the stage where we can actually prevent hearing impaired children from even occurring in the first place.
Yes. We will, over the years, see a dramatic reduction in the number of hearing impaired children.
Yes.
There's 3 main reasons in Vietnam for deafness.
Yes.
The first one is rubella, German measles. Have you heard? Okay. So when I first came to Vietnam, they gave the women the vaccine as they walked into the hospital to deliver the baby.
Oh.
Too late. Now it's part of the vaccine program, so that will stop. The second one is the overuse and misuse of antibiotics. There's one antibiotic called gentamicin, which we know causes deafness and blindness if you give it to a mother in the early stages of pregnancies. And the third one, in Western countries, we call it glue ear. It's just children who get repeated ear infections. What we would do in the West is we put a tiny, tiny silicone tube into the ear to keep the ear canal open. So when they get an infection, it can drain out. But in Vietnam, they don't do that. And so repeated ear infections damage the hearing permanently. So that's 3 reasons they can be prevented, and we will see them be prevented in the future.
Mai puts a lot of faith and hope into this center to give disadvantaged deaf children better lives. Many young people have found life-changing opportunities to escape loneliness and alienation. Ngọc first went to school when she was 12 years old.
Trước đây Ngọc cảm thấy ở nhà rất buồn vì không có bạn, không giao tiếp được với ai. Ba mẹ không có nói chuyện với Ngọc.
Initially shy, Ngọc made remarkable progress after just a year of study.
Sau khi ở trường về thì em giao tiếp với ba mẹ bằng cách viết ra, ký hiệu cho ba mẹ biết. Em thích học tiếng Việt, đạo đức, tự nhiên xã hội. Khi mà đến đây học, em rất vui vì có bạn.
Meeting Mai and attending the center was a major turning point for this young girl.
Trước đây mình còn nhỏ, mình bị khiếm thính, không biết cách nói chuyện với ba mẹ. 12 tuổi đi làm lồng đèn. Sau đó gặp cô Mai thì cô ấy hỏi có biết dùng ký hiệu không. Mình lắc đầu không biết và mình sợ giao tiếp. Cô Mai gặp ba mẹ mình nói chuyện. Sau đó mình được đến trung tâm. Cô Mai đã trao cho mình cơ hội. Lúc đầu đến đây mình phụ nấu bếp. Sau đó mình học ngôn ngữ ký hiệu và dần dần mình trở thành trợ giảng. Cô Mai đã trao cho mình cơ hội. Bây giờ mình cảm thấy vui và hạnh phúc rất nhiều. Trước đây mình không biết gì cả, giờ thì mình biết nhiều kiến thức vì được học hành. Sau này mình muốn trở thành giáo viên để giúp đỡ các bạn nhỏ giống mình ngày xưa.
Do you consider that is like the proudest moment that, you know, in your life when you have like run the school? Or do you have like other proudest moments?
That is, apart from giving birth to my son, which was the proudest day of my life, the school is that's my achievement. That's made my whole life worthwhile.
We happened to come across this story when your father was alive. He also asked you the same question. Are you happy living in Vietnam?
My father taught me so well. So he was the big influencer in my life. And from a young age, my father introduced me to volunteer work. And I've always done volunteer work. I love it. And the last time I saw my father, which was about a year before his death, as always, he said, "How's the school going? How are you doing for money? Are you all right?" He was my biggest supporter. And I had to be honest, and I said to him, "Dad, I have never been so poor in my life. I had a good life in Australia. Wasn't rich, but I certainly wasn't poor. I had a good life." I said, "I've never been so poor in my life, but at the same time, I've never been so rich as I am now. And I do feel rich. I feel very rich."
Right. So in many ways, you are very similar to your father, and you dedicated your life in service to others, even before you came to Vietnam. And so we want to talk about your children and your grandchildren and your connections with them.
Yeah.
How precious are they to you?
Oh my God. So I have one son in Australia, and he has two children who I don't see a lot of because I'm here so much. But my son is so like my father, and his son is like him. So there must be something in the genes.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm also very blessed in that I have 3 grandchildren in Vietnam. Obviously not my biological grandchildren, but in every other sense of the word, they are my grandchildren. They're my pride and joy. And my twins they'll be 11 this year, and I've been with them since they were 5 days old.
Wow.
So I see them every day. I eat with them every night. We're very, very close, and they are family. They're not just my friends.
Right.
Their mother and father are very much my family. And I have a relatively new granddaughter in Dialog. She's 7 months old. I'm starting to spend more time in Dialog so I can spend time with her as well.
In late 2006, Maire McCann first came to Hội An as a patient care volunteer. She helped many people who later became her family. Despite his busy schedule, Hưng takes Mai to her favorite restaurant every week to enjoy her favorite dish, Quảng noodles.
Thì ngay những ngày đầu tôi đến Hội An thì bà Mai đã giúp đỡ tôi rất nhiều trong mọi việc, cải thiện tôi về khả năng là giao tiếp bằng tiếng Anh cũng như là nghiệp vụ công việc để tôi là bước đầu có những cái may mắn được làm việc trong tổ chức nơi bà làm việc. 2008 cho đến bây giờ thì bà và tôi là gắn bó và là có những cái kỷ niệm rất là đẹp. Năm 2020 thì tôi cưới vợ, bà là người đứng ra làm chủ hôn và xem gia đình tôi là một phần của gia đình bà. Bà có chia sẻ với tôi là bà xem Việt Nam là quê hương thứ hai của bà, thì vì bà yêu mến cái sự thân thiện của con người Việt Nam và bà muốn giúp đỡ những trẻ có hoàn cảnh khó khăn, đặc biệt là những trẻ khuyết tật về vấn đề là khiếm thính, tạo cho trẻ có cái môi trường để trẻ có thể là học tập, giao tiếp và hòa nhập xã hội. Bà là người rất là tình cảm, sống rất tình cảm và yêu thương trẻ và luôn sẵn sàng giúp đỡ mọi người khi có thể.
Cô Mai rất yêu thương chúng em.
Mỗi khi cô Mai tới trường thì các em nhỏ là chạy ùa ra và ôm chầm lấy cô Mai và kể với cô Mai là hôm nay mình được 9 điểm, 10 điểm. Cô Mai rất là vui tính. Ngọc gặp cô Mai là Ngọc cảm thấy vui.
What about Lin and Hung? What are, over the years, how special is your bond with them?
So Lin came to me after I'd been in Hoi An a couple of years. I think she wanted to improve her English. And she's a very, very charismatic person, very likable. And so we quickly became friends, not just helping her with the English. We just became closer and closer, and then of course when she had the twins we were very close. Duk, her husband, he's the tutor at school. He teaches the boys at the skills centre, and he's very like Lian. He's very family orientated, works from the heart. I trust them both with my life. My son Hung, who I met about 2008, 2009. When I first met him, he couldn't speak English. But over time, we spent more and more time together, and I was just welcomed into his family as well. His mum referred to me as her sister, and I'm included in all the family get-togethers, so I'm part of their family also. And to me, that's one of the main reasons, apart from the school, that would be the main reason I stay, is the close connections I have, particularly with Lian Duk and Hung and his wife Yim.
Every afternoon, Mai visits Lian, the center's manager, her foster daughter. These are moments when she enjoys a warm, peaceful family life in Vietnam. For over 10 years, Lian and her family have welcomed and treated Mai as a family member because Mai has always shown them the same care and support.
Con rất thích những bữa ăn có bà Mai vì bà Mai có thể trò chuyện và chơi đùa. Vì con coi bà Mai luôn là bà của con vì bà nó rất là hiền, cũng giống bà của con. Bà Mai là bà nội của con. Khi con sinh ra là bà đã ở với con, rất thương luôn. Tại vì bà luôn ở bên cạnh khi con cần. Cũng là một người động viên khi con vào những cuộc thi lớn. Chính vì thế cho nên con coi bà Mai như là bà nội của con.
Ta phải đi làm. Rồi cái lương của ta bao nhiêu phần trăm đó là để mà chi tiêu hàng ngày. Còn lại là ta sẽ giúp từ thiện. Rồi sau đó bác mới về Úc, bác đi làm. Khi mà có đủ tiền rồi thì bác quay lại và bác cứ làm như vậy. Thường thì hồi xưa một năm đó là bác 3 tháng bên này, 3 tháng bên kia. Tới trung tâm thì mình mới phát hiện ra thì ra là bác tiết kiệm để bác có tiền để bác lo cho mấy bé, để bác có nhiều cái thời gian bác dành cho mấy bé. Thì chính vì cái điều đó mà mình chia sẻ, nói chung là chia sẻ mọi thứ, cả công việc. Và mình nghĩ bác giống như một người mẹ của mình vậy. Và cũng mừng là bác cũng nghĩ mình giống như con gái của bác.
So when you land in Vietnam, in Hoi An, you said like you felt like home, and now it is true.
Home with family.
Yes, exactly. And so that brings us to, several at the end of our section. At the end of the day, what is Vietnam to you?
Vietnam's home. Definitely Vietnam is home. It's my happy place. I realize I need to get out of Vietnam once a year to appreciate what I've got. It's too easy to become complacent. And so I go back to Australia to see my family and friends, but usually 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I want to come home. And when I come back with renewed vigor, renewed passion. It gives me more energy to keep going.
Right. And what are your future plans? And I know that you have already taken a little bit of a backseat with the school and with Hearing and Beyond.
Yeah.
So what is in store for you right now?
Well, obviously I'm thinking forward because I have built a small, very, very small house for myself, which just happens to be right beside where we're going to build the school. So even when I do retire from the school, I will still always have that connection because we will be neighbours. We're right together. I will always be a part of the school, always. But yeah, I do hope to retire eventually. But in the meantime, I'm happy to keep working.
We'll be overseeing everything. We'll be taking care of everything.
Well, anytime I feel lonely or sad, I will just go next door and get so many hugs from the children.
And I think it's gonna be a hug that's just a gift that's just gonna keep on giving.
But the problem now is, like the children always, when I come back from Australia, it's like this massive hug. Now the children have grown up, some of them are taller than me, so when they come en masse, I nearly fall over because they're getting stronger than me.
And you know that they're gonna catch you.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is Recess at the Center. There are no spoken words or laughter, but happiness can be seen on all their faces. The children now have the opportunity to learn, play, integrate, and have a better future.
And do you have any message you want to impart to the audience of VTV4?
If people could just be aware that because you have a physical disability does not mean you have a cognitive disability.
Yes.
These children are normal. The only thing different, they're deaf.
Yes.
And we have to find a way to keep this education going, and I can no longer do it on my own. I need Vietnam to help these Vietnamese children. From the beginning, I've always had in the back of my mind that I would hand this over to the Vietnamese. Because even though I feel at home, I'm still a foreigner here. I should not be in charge of this. The Vietnamese people need to take ownership. By supporting the school, they're helping these children to become members of society, not a drain on society.
Exactly.
And I think we all want that for our children, to become productive members of society.
Exactly, and I think that is a very beautiful note to end off of. And that is the inspiring story of Maire McCann, everyone. And I hope that the audience, when you're watching this through the screen, you can also join us in spreading a little bit of kindness. And I want you to understand that with just a little bit of kindness, anyone can do a great thing.
Yes.
And see you on the next episode of Talk Vietnam with more of our inspiring guests. Goodbye for now.